Hello everyone and welcome back to the World Cement podcast with me, David Bisley, Senior Editor of World Cement. In this episode, I'm joined by Alvaro Lorenz, Global Director of Sustainability, Institutional Relations, Product Development, Engineering and Energy at Votorantim Cementos. And today, we're going to be exploring Votorantim's decarbonisation journey, checking in on the progress made, covering some highlights and looking to the future as well. I just wanted to take a moment to remind you to register for World Cement. It's free of charge and gives you access to the latest issues of World Cement, both in print and online. Every issue comes packed full of regional analysis, technical articles, project case studies, and the latest industry news. Simply head over to worldcement.com, click the magazine tab and register today. It's as simple as that. Happy reading. So, Alvaro, delighted to have you here with us on the World Cement podcast today. We've got lots of exciting things to cover.
Hi, happy from my side. I'm very excited to discuss and chat a little bit.
Excellent. So, you recently published an update on your progress towards your 2030 decarbonisation goals. Now, before we get into the details of that progress, tell us about the goals. What are the main targets you're aiming for?
Yeah, indeed, we have updated our targets in Science-Based Target Initiative that was made end of 2022. And we have reviewed and lowered our target of CO2 emissions. So it used to be 520 kilos of CO2 per ton of cementitious. We had to reduce it to 475. So that's an important reduction, which is our commitment for 2030. And together with that, because this is a Scope 1 emissions, our additional target was established to reduce our Scope 2 emissions by 52.4% compared to the base year, which is 2018. It's also important to confirm that our target's not only, committed to 2030, it's to achieve a net zero emission in concrete by 2050.
Okay, excellent. So how are things going with the decarbonisation process? What are your main achievements so far?
Indeed, we are, progressing quite well. Usually the cement sector uses 1990 as a reference, as a target starting date to compare emission reduction. So compared to 1990, we have achieved already 27.9% of emissions reduction, which gave us the result in 2024 in 550 kilos of CO2 per ton of cementitious material. So we are sticking to our commitment, our external and public commitment to achieve 475 by the end of 2030 or eventually even sooner.
Okay, excellent. You stated in your recent announcement that Votorantim's decarbonisation strategy is based on 4 main pillars. Can you expand on what those 4 pillars are? Tell us a bit about those.
Yeah, in order to achieve this reduction and keep reducing it throughout the years, our strategy is based in 4 different pillars. So the first one is how can we reduce utilization of fossil fuels? So by doing that, we replace with material that we call co-processing. So everything that can replace fossil fuels, that in our case is pet coke. So we can use tires, we can use municipal solid waste, we can use different sources of biomass, different types of waste. So we are trying to use as much as we can, knowing that we have, in our geographical footprint quite large. So in different regions, for example, in Brazil, we are present in several regions of Brazil, so we can access different sources of biomass. We have, for example, one very interesting case, which is the utilization of acai, the energetic fruit. We use the pits of acai as a source of biomass fuel for our plants. So we achieved by the end of 2024, 32% of fossil fuel replacing, which is a huge achievement. So that's one pillar. And it's very important also to notice that among the comparison with different peers, we use out of this co-processing a huge amount of biomass. In our case, we achieved the end of last year, 18% of biomass utilization, which put us in one of the, top tier in terms of fossil fuel replacement. So that's the first lever in terms of reducing our CO2 footprint. The second one is to use what we call cementitious materials, so that everything that could replace or can replace clinker, which is the material that's produced out of the kiln. So by doing that, we reduce the dependency of using clinker We use in different regions, different types of materials, like from steel production. We use a fly ash, which comes out from thermal power plants that are still in some countries are still being present. We use limestone, and we have one technology which is already going on, which is the calcined clay. We have been using this technology in Brazil for several years already and has been proven to be a huge impact in terms of CO2 reduction. So this is the second target we achieved end of last year, 72.5% of clinker replacement last year in 2024 is what we call energy efficiency and the utilization of renewable energy sources. So we are trying to reduce our Scope 2 emissions. And we have, for example, in Brazil, several different sources of renewable energy. We have, I'd say, hydropower plants that are been producing energy. We have one wind farm in the northeast of Brazil and also in other countries. And we are right now building solar farm. Just as a curiosity, this is going to supply in Brazil 100 megawatts of solar energy. It's interesting, it's going to be 700,000 solar panels that are going to be used, which will make us, for example, in Brazil, starting January 2026, 75% of the whole energy that we use in our operations in Brazil will become on renewable energy. That's a major accomplishment, even exceeding our target to achieve 45% of energy. And finally, the fourth one is everything which is connected to technology development. We have started already one pilot plant of carbon capture in one of our plants in Spain. It's called the Alconera plant. That technology, which is called the hot potassium carbonate. So we are testing this technology in order to prove it can capture and reduce our CO2 emissions. And we are advancing in another pilot to be installed in a plant that we have in the United States. The plant is called the Charlevoix in Michigan State, which is also going to use a very different type of technology, which is called the membrane technology. So we're exploring these technologies because in order to reduce and capture this CO2, that's a heavy investment. So we are proving and testing different technologies in order to best adapt the choices that we're going to make in the future.
Okay, excellent. There's a lot going on. Your announcement highlighted sort of four main examples of progress in your decarbonisation journey. And one of those, for example, was back in February this year, you were rated A for your climate efforts by CDP for the second year in a row. Before we get into the rating itself and what that means, can you just give us a brief overview of who CDP are?
Yeah, so CDP is an NGO, so a non-profit organization that is being used as a reference in the world as, I'd say, assessing governance and management in terms of climate change. So that was an organization that was founded back in 2000 in UK. And in fact, they assess a huge set of companies. Just as information, in 2024, they have assessed more than 22,000 companies in terms of not only results, but governance in terms of everything related to climate change.
Okay, excellent. And what exactly does the A rating mean, and how would that differ from a B, for example?
Yeah, so the rating system used by CDP ranges from A to F, so according to the result and governance. As a result, for example, in a second year in a row, we got what the famous, they call it A list.
Okay.
And just information, out of these 22,000 companies that were assessed in 2024, only 2% of the companies got the A score. So that is, for example, 500 companies or 2% of all companies are rated in A, which for us is very important, not just the rating itself, but what is behind it, because sustainability is not just an organization, it's the whole the movement inside the company in order to achieve and address climate change.
And one of the other achievements noted in this announcement was that towards the end of last year, Votorantim launched Blentur, a new lower carbon cement for the Iberian Peninsula. What is it that makes this blend more environmentally friendly?
Yeah, we all know that in terms of advance, in terms of everything related to decarbonization and climate change, addressing, I'd say, sustainable production and sustainable solutions is a key point. We see a lot of different customers requiring low carbon footprint products and solutions. So we decided to launch this initiative in Spain. And this is a range of products and solutions that reduce 30% of our CO2 footprint. and has been quite successful because, as I said, a lot of customers has been requiring, because, for example, when they're going to build a different building or a different installation, in order to have all those, I'd say, green labeling, it's important to have the whole value chain addressing reducing the CO2 footprint. So that has been quite a successful story. And we have increasing the investment because it's not just the brand itself, it's a lot of technology behind in order to produce different types of cement and concrete that, as I said, reduce by 30% our, I'd say, usual CO2 footprint.
Okay. And why did you decide to launch in Spain first? Do you have plans to provide this mix elsewhere?
Yeah, we have, I'd say, a big footprint in Spain and being present in the European community, everything which is in terms of, I'd say, carbon market solution and everything related. We know that by 2026, we will have the CDM implemented. So that helps us to keep increasing the pace to reduce our CO2 footprint. And by allowing our customer network to achieve these lower CO2 products, will help us keep investing even bigger, more money being invested in terms of to achieve a lower CO2 footprint. So it's a win-win situation. We offer our customers these lower CO2 footprint products and they require it. And this is enabling us to keep investing and improving our general target.
Okay, excellent. Now, no discussion of decarbonisation in the cement industry would be complete without at least some mention of carbon capture. And you've already mentioned two exciting new projects, one at Alcanera and one at Charlevoix, if I said that correctly, I hope, in North America. Tell us a bit about those projects. Are there different approaches involved? And what kind of results are you looking for?
So in fact, the capex or the investment needed in order to capture CO2 is quite high because the concentration of CO2 in what we call the flue gas, that means everything that comes out from the stack of a cement plant, it needs to be concentrated. So the technology that requires to be used requires a huge amount of energy. That's why having a target to increase our renewable energy is a must for Votorantim cements on the whole cement industry. So the consumption of energy is quite high. The second one is in order to make the concentration of the CO2 in this gas requires a different, I'd say, mixtures and chemicals. So the definition of what type of technology in order not only to capture the CO2, but also to have the minimum impact as possible in terms of cost, it's key. So in order to test different types of technology, as different cement players, we have been trying and testing two different technologies at the present. So the first one in our plant in Alconera in Spain, it's a technology called the hot potassium carbonate. So in fact, it helps. It's a different chemical solution that I'd say separates CO2 for other gases, nitrogen and NOx. So it's going quite well. So that could be one potential solution in order to upgrade and cover the whole cement production in that and eventually other cement plants that we have in Spain. And in order not to be, I'd say, kept in only one technology, we decided to go to another type of technology in the United States or North America in this Charlevoix plant, which is located in Michigan State, by using a membrane technology. So this one uses different types of chemical admixture, and it's in a modular concept. So that could be based a system where we would upgrade the installation and the sizing across the time. This is ongoing, and we are quite excited because this will help us better define and then keep going in our, I'd say, external targets of CO2 reduction.
Fantastic. One of the other things you mentioned in your announcement was the money you've been investing into co-processing projects in Brazil over the last year. Can you tell us a bit about some of those projects? Are there any particularly noteworthy examples that stand out? And what kind of upgrades have you been investing in? And if I can add another question to that, what sort of, again, results are you looking for there?
Yeah, so we have announced back in 2024, 5 billion reais investment in a 5-year plan, so 24 to 28, which will enable us to increase our competitiveness, to reduce our CO2 footprint, and use less resources. So in doing that, we have a whole set of different projects and sizes in order to increase, as I said, our competitiveness. So we are going quite well. So we have one or several, I could give several examples, but just trying to keep in two, make it shorter. So we have one investment in one plant in the center of Brazil, in our Tocantins state. And this plant can access different sources of biomass because, as we know, Brazil is a country with a lot of agriculture being available.
Sure.
So I'd say the residue or the waste of the agriculture can be used as a source of biomass. So we have implemented this project to replace fossil fuel, as I said, that used to be pet coke, to different sources of biomass. And the first year already, after the commissioning, we already achieved 55% of fossil fuel replacement. So that has been a huge success, not only in terms of, let's say, replacement, but in CO2 reduction. Another example I can give is in the São Paulo state, close to São Paulo city. So that was an investment made in, and in fact, it was a green financing that we got with, IFC, International Finance Corporation. That has been the first IFC investment that was made in the cement sector in Brazil. So we got $150 million of green financing. And we have enabled one plant, which is called the Salto. And this Salto plant has been increasing the amount of co-processing quite high. Our target is to achieve 2/3 of the fuel replacement by using different types of waste, including what we call municipal solid waste, which for big cities like São Paulo, 20 million inhabitants, it's a big challenge in order to reduce the material being sent to landfill. So this addresses not only our commitments in terms of Votorantim cement, but also in terms of addressing social issues, in terms of reducing the material being sent to the landfill. That's a second example. If you allow me, just a third one that I just recall, we have made a huge investment in the south of Brazil. Gave three examples, one in the, I'd say, north of Brazil, the second one in the center, and one in the south of Brazil. We have one business line in Votorantim in Brazil that is called Verdera. It's a business line that is what we call total waste management. So this company, we have installed two facilities. One is to receive material from different sources of waste generators. So plastics, textile, and different plastics that those generators may available that use it to be sent to the landfills. So in this co-processing facility, we receive it, we crush it, grind it, and then homogenize, and then we send to one plant, which is the biggest cement plant in South America, or even Latin America, that can consume this material. So that has been another, let's say, key investment that we're making out of this 5 billion investment that was announced, that allow us to keep addressing toward, say, external commitments in terms of carbon footprint.
Excellent. And what are the next steps for your decarbonisation strategy? Are there any upcoming projects that we should be keeping an eye out for?
As I said, for us, increasing the amount of renewable energy is a key target for us. As I said, by January 2026, we'll start running the solar farm, which will allow us to achieve 75% of renewable energy in Brazil. Second one is to keep expanding this Blanchard brand in order to allow us keep investing and making it available to our customers in Iberia or Portugal and Spain regions, to have these low carbon products being made available. Third one is everything connected to deployment of different technologies in terms of carbon capture. We know that's a must in terms of the cement sector. And the fourth one, which is, I'd say, more spread throughout the whole footprint that we have, different initiatives, grabbing options in order to increase the four, I'd say, different levers that we have, which is co-processing, clinker replacement by using different sources of cementitious, and increasing what we call in our company adjacencies. So everything which is not, I'd say, directly cement and ready mix. So we have one agricultural line being made available. So we help, knowing that Brazil has a vocation to agriculture. So we keep increasing the productivity of the agriculture sector in Brazil. So that's a win-win situation. Second one is everything related to this total waste management. And we keep increasing that. We have even implemented a virtual transport company without having any truck. So we all do this same management of different fleets in order to better serve our different customers. So we have a lot of things in our plan in the next 5 years. So we are very optimistic in terms of achieving our external targets and moving the whole organization behind it.
Okay, fantastic. I think I said earlier, lots going on. So before we end things for this episode, do you have any final thoughts or comments for the World Cement audience?
There is a quote from the United Nations about what they call sustainable development. So what is sustainable development? So it's a development that meets the needs of the present without compromise the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. So if we just understand that, I think the whole commitment of Votorantim Cimentos is to leave behind what we call a positive legacy. So we are very committed to our external targets in terms of addressing climate change. We have been seeing, unfortunately, a lot of events throughout the world. So we are very committed in order to reduce our CO2 footprint. We have public targets that cover not only our CO2 emissions, but a whole set of public commitments. You can find it, everybody who is going to listen to this podcast, you can find in our integrated report that was released in March this year. We have 19 KPIs that address not only, I'd say, as I said, the CO2 footprint, but everything related to safety, related to sustainable solutions, related to diversity, related to a lot of things in terms of social transformation. So for me, I think that the whole invitation here for everyone who is listening to it, it's a society, it's the world commitment in order to reduce and address the climate change. This has to be made throughout the whole value chain. So it's not just the one company addressing it, it's the whole value chain, the society that is going to be made of that. And I'd like to emphasize the need that we all move together in these commitments, and we are very committed to it to achieve carbon neutral concrete by 2050.
Excellent. That's a fantastic point to end on there. Alvaro, that does about wrap things up for this episode of the World Cement Podcast. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you.
For going through Votorantim's decarbonisation journey.
It has been a pleasure, and I hope you guys like it.
And of course, there are more episodes of the World Cement Podcast on the way, so make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out. And if you're a new listener, make sure to check out some of our previous episodes featuring guests from companies like Ecosem, the GCCA, and FL Schmidt Cement. Oh, and before I leave you, if you like this episode, please make sure to show your support by rating, reviewing, and subscribing. Goodbye for now. I just wanted to take a moment to remind you to register for World Cement. It's free of charge and gives you access to the latest issues of World Cement, both in print and online. Every issue comes packed full of regional analysis, technical articles, project case studies, and the latest industry news. Simply head over to worldcement.com, click the magazine tab, and register today. It's as simple as that. Happy reading.